So welcome back. This is NetLab 7, creating and managing vCenter server inventory. I'm Richard Golson, and we are on task 5, our final task, which is creating a folder for virtual machine and virtual machine templates. In this task, we do not have a virtual machine on the ESXi host. I could move one over, but instead what we're going to do is we're going to create a new virtual machine. And it's also a great way of testing out that ESXi server, make sure everything's working well. So we're going to go ahead and create that now. And if you want to skip past this part, you can zip past it. You're not going to see anything really new here. But let's go ahead and get started. So I have my ESXi server selected, and I'll go ahead and right click on that and say new virtual machine. And I'm going to create the new virtual machine as my option here. Note all the others. We'll hit next. Now let's take a look here. We're going to name this virtual machine Photon. Again, let's get the name correct. This is actually an operating system that VMware has built based upon a distribution of Linux. I don't remember which branch they went off of, but this is a Linux distribution that's specifically tuned for ESXi servers. And we're going to go ahead and use this. It's really should be pretty lightweight to create a virtual machine. Now we've got select a location for the virtual machine, and notice that since I was selected that ESXi server, which is in the lab data center, it selects this. So we've selected the name, and we don't have a folder, so there's nothing to select here. So this is the other thing I wanted to point out. If I already had a folder, I would have been able to select it off the list. We'll hit the next. And our server is selected and compatibility checked out. Hitting my next button here. We'll go ahead and select the only option, which is NFS. Select that one there. Compatibility checked out. So apparently this ESXi server was configured to interact with the NFS server. The NFS server, if I take a look at a topology, is hosted here. And the NFS, or network file system, and that connection to that is not dependent upon the vSphere environment. That's why we could connect the ESXi server, and it has, with previous configuration, it has the capability to continue to interact with that server. That configuration is not affected by vSphere. So vSphere queried, hit the wrong button. vSphere queried the ESXi server to determine which storage, what storage is available, and this is what showed up. Okay, click next, and we have options here, but we're going to go with 7.0 and later. Leave it on that. And then we need to change the guest OS family to Linux. And then we're going to look for that VMware Photon OS. As I stated earlier, this is a purpose-built distribution, Linux distribution, that specifically tuned to host a hypervisor. It's not the ESXi hypervisor itself, but it is tuned to host it. We'll go ahead and hit the next button here. For customizing hardware, we're going to go ahead and change the disk size. You can see that we're getting an error message about disk capacity. If we go back a couple steps, we should note that there was only about 9.62 gigabytes, under 10 gigabytes available. So we need to reduce the size of the disk. So we're going to set that down to 5 according to the specs here. There we go. And we'll hit the next button here. And it's telling us it's ready to complete. I'll go ahead and hit the finish. And that's going to build out that Photon virtual machine. Looks like it's done. Now, because we didn't install an operating system on it, this went pretty fast, right? So the next step here is to create a new folder. So I'll go to the data center and select or right click on that, or I can select it either way. Right click on it and I'll add a new folder. And this is where I need to pay attention, because when I'm organizing my virtual machines, I need to select this correct folder type. So I need the new VM and template folder. Then I'll give it a name. I'm going to call this Lab VMs. They got a little bit of funniness going on here because they got all caps and then an lowercase. Case sensitivity is important, so if we're spec'd, we should follow that. It's easy enough to make those mistakes. We can usually fix them. I'll hit the OK. And you may be looking at this going, well, where the heck is the folder? Right? I don't see that new folder, and if I refresh, I still don't see it. That's because of the type of folder. Remember, we created a new VM and template folder, so what I'm going to do is click on the VMs and templates node or tab, expand the lab data center, and you can see that not only do I see that Photon VM, I see the folder. And it's got the little caret next to it, and if I select it, you'll see there's nothing in there currently. So what I'll do is go ahead, the same thing I did previously. I can drag and drop my VM into there. The other thing you can do is you can select your VM and you can right click on it and you can actually move it, right? So, but let's just go ahead and do that now. So I'll click and drag it in. It's now added and that's expanded out. So now I have my VM in there. Let's create another folder while we're in this node here, or the VMs and templates tab. So I'm going to go ahead and select the lab data center. And right click and select new folder. And you'll notice it always gives you the option. So it's not contextual, even though I'm on a node that doesn't where I can't manage my hosts, it still gives me every one of the options. So I'll go ahead and hit the new VM and template folder. And I'm going to create this one specifically for lab templates. Remember, lab templates can be used to launch new virtual machines. And I'll hit the OK. And now we can see that. And you can see down here, one of the things I did want to point out is that as we're completing things, we are seeing those noted in the tasks. So it's handy to watch that. This happens so quickly that you might not even notice it. Let me scroll up here. So you can see now that both of these templates are adjacent to each other. So let's go ahead and we're going to, if I try to expand it, you won't see anything in there. So let's go ahead and select that lab VMs. And if you notice when you select the lab VMs, that what you will see are options for creating new virtual machines, deploying them, etc. They're all appropriate to the purpose of this virtual machine or this folder, which is for managing VMs and templates. And if I were to select the lab servers, I would see similar options, but specifically to hosts and clusters. Okay, that's basically it. We've completed our tasks here. We've created a nice start to a data center with a host that actually has some resources. I've got a VM on there. I've got my folders on there. And I can begin organizing my resources. Noticing in the bottom here, I have my recent tasks, which will allow me to view and monitor what's been going on. And it's a great one to be able to just kind of keep track of things. All right, that's it for the lab. Don't forget to get your screenshots, consult the lab instruction page in the Canvas to ensure that you get the right documents or documentation for this. Thank you very much, and enjoy the lab.